If you're talking to someone and they're not listening, shut up. Just stop. It's like you can tell if they're not listening. And if they're not listening, quit saying words. You'll just feel like a fool anyways, because it's like you're throwing ping pong balls against a brick wall. You're not getting anywhere. If they're not listening, that's a sign that the situation isn't set up to allow you to progress on the path that you're choosing. Roger suggested this technique. So I said I would get to the technique. He said, the next time you find yourself embroiled in an argument with someone that's contentious and uncomfortable, say, institute the following rule. You don't get to respond until you have recapitulated their viewpoint and summarized it in a manner they find acceptable. That's so treacherously sneaky, that rule. Because what it means is you have to demonstrate that you attended to what they say closely enough and carefully enough to, first of all, act out validation of the idea that they have an opinion worth attending to. So that's a big deal, eh? People really like being paid attention to. There is nothing people like more than that. So you have to sort of strike right to the quick. It sounds to me like this is the point you were making. And then you lay out the point, and then you see they have to be happy with your summary. They have to be pleased with it, which means that you're doing exactly the opposite of straw-manning the argument, quite the contrary. And you're doing them a favor in some sense by reducing it to the gist, because that's actually an incredibly complex cognitive operation. And so one of the things you have to remember when you're discussing things with people, even if they're out to defeat you, let's say, on any complex subject, there's a lot to be said. But you need to learn just exactly how localized your viewpoint is. What you really want, if you're going to engage in a discussion about, say, something like gun control, is you want to be familiar with the entire range of arguments. Deeply familiar. And have some respect for them. It's pretty clear that guns kill people. They're dangerous. They're not arguments. They're just perceptual biases. That's one way of thinking about them. But then it's also not self-evident that the only entities that should be allowed to be dangerous are the state entities. So there's things that can be said that are intelligent across that entire line of that entire distribution of opinion. And if you're educated, then you should be conversant with the entire range of opinions. Now, the alternative is to believe that you're wise enough to detail out explicit arguments that you don't agree with, and to ignore that, and to wall yourself off from that, and to not have it affect you at the same time that you're maintaining your original beliefs. You can just forget that. You just do not have the capacity to do that. If you deceive other people habitually, you will corrupt your own vision. And that's a very bad idea. When you listen to someone very, very carefully, and especially if they express themselves for a while, and you say to them, well, it sounds to me like this is what you're saying, what you're doing is taking a tremendous amount of emotionally laden material, a lot of it unnecessary in the final analysis because of the ensuing synthesis, and offering them a synthesis, which is a great thing to do, especially if they're happy to accept it, because that also means that you did listen to them. So you signified that they were worth attending to, and then you listened to them enough to actually understand what they were saying, to try to understand it, and then you did understand it. And then they're way happier with you, even if you're arguing with them, because at least now they know they can rely on you to be a reliable listener, and that you're not trying to, you know how it is when you're arguing with someone, there's a part of you that really wants to win. It's like, I'm right, you're stupid and wrong. And so the best way for me to demonstrate that is to warp and bend your argument make it trivial in some way it isn't, especially if it's directed to some degree, like elucidating my character flaws, and to minimize you in doing so. And that's not a great road to peace unless you're willing to bring a big club to the argument, and many people are. And instead of listening and trying to make peace and sort things out, they'll use all sorts of subtle forms of suppression in their ensuing dialogue just to keep everything, under the rug or in the closet. I wouldn't recommend that as a medium to long-term strategy, especially if you're trying to bring peace to a household. You have to go through this horribly painful process of listening to the people around you tell you what they think of their lives. And if you do that, then, well, maybe you can all come to a place that is characterized by something approximating genuine peace.